Hi, I'm Thomas Bowles, Prince William County Agricultural Extension Agent. Welcome to our video.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Bowles. I'm the Ag Agent here in Prince William County, and welcome to this morning's selection of our class. Today we have Natalie Walker, our environmental educator, who's going to present on what you should expect from your lawn and landscape company. Again, if you have questions, please enter them in the chat box and we'll get to those at the end. Otherwise, I think we're all ready. Natalie, take it away.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to what you should expect from your lawn/landscape company. So with many homeowners no longer performing lawn and landscape work themselves and numerous lawn and landscape companies to choose from, picking the right landscape company can be a challenge. It's important to know what service you want for your yard and determine your expectations. Lawn and landscape care companies are a wonderful convenience for the busy homeowners, but you want to be sure that you carefully evaluate and choose a professional company to get the most for your money and help in keeping Virginia's natural environment, pollinators, wildlife, and water supply safe. All right, so as a homeowner, you want to do your own research. Don't assume that the companies are following best management practices. Talk to the company directly, call them, look at their website, ask questions. If they've worked on your neighbor or friend's yard, you can talk to them about it. You want to make sure that you choose a good professional company with well-trained employees that follow the latest best management practices. All right, slide 3. Ask for credentials. So after you've done your research, when you have narrowed down your choice, an estimate from 3 or 4 landscapers is the best way to give you an accurate idea of cost for the desired jobs. When interviewing a potential landscaper, remember some basic questions to ask. What are the comprehensive services they offer? What are their certifications? Are their employees attending yearly trainings? Can they provide proof of insurance? Can they provide a list of references or recent clients? Are there any photos of completed short and long-term work that you can see? What is their communication process and how will you be billed? Just to note, this is just a list of basic questions and it's not exhaustive. Doing a simple internet search can help you decide which questions you want to ask personally, depending on your particular situation and what you desire to have done to your landscape. All right, next slide. So it's easy to place the blame on a landscape company when things go wrong, but you have to remember that even in the best of circumstances, plants are at the mercy of Mother Nature. So talk to your landscapers and ask them questions. Make sure they're familiar with planting the right plants in the right place on your landscape. A reliable company will be communicative and keep you regularly up to date on issues, the work they're doing as it relates to your yard. And as a homeowner, being completely hands-off about your lawn is unrealistic. So some amount of input will be required on your part as the homeowner. Next slide. So you can create a checklist and there should be some slides that pop up on, there we go. So this was just an example, a checklist example for hiring a lawn care professional from the University of Florida. Obviously, our climate is different than Florida, but I thought this would be a good checklist to follow should you hire a lawn landscape company. So creating this, with this checklist, they started with is the company licensed and insured? And then underneath that, they have multiple other questions related to license and insured. And then do they have additional beneficial certifications? And next, some additional questions regarding irrigation, mowing. Next slide. Pruning and trimming, a checklist for turf fertilization application, what to apply, how to apply, when to apply. They have information about pest management, landscape design, and plant installation. So some basics if you're hiring a lawn landscape company to perform work on your lawn. You want to make sure that they're soil testing. Soil testing is one of the most important things to do for your lawn. The report will tell you or the landscape company the pH, lime recommendations, and if you don't need lime, and fertilizer recommendations. You or the company you're hiring should also determine the square footage before application of fertilizer, lime, and compost. Something to keep in mind is lime is not annual maintenance and it should only be applied according to your soil test result. So under application of lime, you may not get the results that you desire. And over application of lime is a waste of money. And if the pH is too high, it can lock up nutrients, making them unavailable to the plants, which is the turf grass. Fertilizer, again, you want to follow the soil test recommendations. Fertilizing at the correct time and correct amount, and keeping fertilizer 15 feet away from streams, shorelines, and drainage ditches, and make sure the company you hire is doing that. Under applying fertilizer, again, it's a waste of money and not getting desired results. And over application of fertilizer, it's bad for the surrounding creeks and rivers when it runs off. And excess nitrogen encourages algal growth and reduces water clarity, which can stress aquatic plant and animal life. Make sure on that checklist that the company you hire, that they're aware of the environmental impacts that the overuse and misuse of fertilizer has on water quality. Does the company that you're interested in know about compost and its benefits, and that adding 1/4 of an inch can help improve soil texture and drainage? It provides organic matter, which will help nourish and attract beneficial organisms in the soil. Does the lawn and or landscape company, do they know the type of turf you have? So do they know the difference between cool season and warm season turf grass and how they are managed at different times of the year? The company should know that cool season grass can go dormant in the summer, which results in a browning or straw color, but it doesn't mean it's dead. Are they aware of proper mowing heights based on the type of turf grass you have? Mowing too short can encourage weeds and necessitates more mowing. Is the mowing equipment that they're using, are the blades sharp, and is equipment being cleaned when going from one lawn to another, as weeds can get stuck on equipment? Are they familiar with leaving grass clippings on the lawn, which decompose quickly, and lawn clippings act as a slow release fertilizer, which can reduce or skip the second and or third application of fertilizer in the fall without loss of turf grass quality. The clippings even feed the microbes in the soil. Also keep an eye to make sure that the company, if they're cutting the grass and the clippings fall on impervious surfaces, ask that they blow or sweep the clippings back onto the turf grass. So if it rains, the clippings don't end up in the storm drain. When it comes to watering your turf, 1 inch a week is ideal to promote deep roots, and making sure that they're not watering driveways, sidewalks, roads, and watering in the morning when evaporation is lowest. So if weeds are present in your lawn, is the company identifying weeds correctly? Are they treating when weeds are most vulnerable and at the correct time of year? If herbicides are used, are they reading and following label instructions? And as the homeowner, are you aware of the environmental and human impacts and also reading the label? Are they spot treating weeds instead of broadcast herbicides, which they should be doing? And also not treating when bees and other pollinators are not actively foraging. If your HOA allows, maybe you have your landscape company consider leaving flowers in the lawn, such as white clover, which can take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into plant available nitrogen, dandelions, and creeping Charlie? Are they aware of the benefits of those weeds that most homeowners don't like in the lawn and their benefits? If there's insects, not all insects are pests, and many are beneficial in the landscape and provide food that other wildlife depend on. ID pests before considering a management plan and learn which insects are common to the plants growing in your landscape. Choose the least toxic treatment methods, and if you decide to treat, always read the label. And also, as a homeowner and landscape company, consider how beneficial non-target insects might be affected by a chemical treatment. Most of the fungus in our area is cosmetic, except for one, which is Plithium blight, which needs to be treated. Again, ID the fungus first, and fungicides can actually do more harm than good. Next slide. That's a good question, Grant. So on DCR website, Department of Conservation and Recreation, you can look for a company that participates in what's known as the Green and Clean Initiative. This is an effort to help meet water quality standards set forth by the Federal Clean Water Act. And green and clean companies have committed to responsible lawn care practices. If a lawn care operator maintains your home lawn or commercial property, you can encourage them to contact DCR to become a part of the initiative. So you could just do a Google search with Green and Clean Initiative and DCR, and there's a list of lawn care companies on there, and there's also a contact with DCR if you're interested in that. All right, so pre-tree purchase. Before the tree's purchased, you and the landscaper should consider the following. Choosing a tree for the right site conditions, the right plant, right place is the key to tree survival and reduced maintenance. Although trees are a great addition in the landscape, not all trees are equally suited for every site or climate. When you want to know when the tree will be planted, early fall is optimum time to plant trees. Hot summer weather is hard on newly planted trees. Consider your soil and site conditions. Is your site sunny, shady? Consider how tall and wide the tree will get when fully grown, and what clearance is needed for sidewalks, patios, driveways, or neighbors' houses. Are there above and below ground utilities that interfere with tree planting? Call Miss Utility first. Select trees native to your area. Native trees will be more tolerant of local weather and soil conditions and enhance natural biodiversity to be more beneficial to wildlife than non-native trees. Avoid exotic trees that can invade other areas and crowd out native plants. And lastly, plant a variety of species for wildlife. Choose trees and shrubs that bloom and bear fruit or nuts at different times of the year. Diversity in planting is important. So for example, a line of cedars can make an impressive border. However, if a disease outbreak or pest infestation should occur, all the trees could be easily lost. Planting a border of alternating species might stop the spread of the problem. Next slide. Selecting healthy trees. A high quality tree when planted and cared for can become a long-lasting asset to your property. A high quality tree has a straight trunk with well-spaced branches, as shown on the left, an exposed trunk free of wounds or damage, and roots growing straight out from the trunk. A low quality tree seen on the right has a weak form in which multiple stems originate from the same point and branches grow into each other. It also has a trunk with wounds from handling or incorrect pruning. And when buying a tree, inspect it carefully to identify problems related to form, injuries, or roots. And there's a really good website called treearegood.org with lots of information about buying trees, how to take care of them, and contacting an arborist should you have tree issues. Next slide. Right, planting trees correctly. On our VCE-Prince YouTube page, there is a video on how to plant a tree, but you can follow the planting instructions that come with your tree, but if there's no instructions, some things for the landscaper to keep in mind is ensure that the trees and shrubs are planted so the flare or the trunk is not buried. New plants will need irrigation during their first year, and irrigating 1 inch of water per week when not provided by rain. Before planting a tree, be sure to have located all underground utilities before digging. Dig a shallow, broad planting hole. Holes should be 2 to 3 times wider than the root ball, but only as deep as the root ball. If the tree's wrapped, remove any cover from around the root ball and trunk to facilitate new growth. Remove wire basket or cut 1 or 2 rings off so it is low profile and will not interfere with future root growth. You want to have them inspect tree root ball for circling roots and straighten, cut, or remove them. Make sure they're placing the tree at the proper height. When placing the tree in the hole, lift by the root ball, not the trunk. The majority of the tree's roots develop in the top 12 inches of soil, and planting too deep can be harmful for the tree. Straighten the tree in the hole. Before filling the hole, have someone examine the tree from several angles to confirm it's straight and make sure the root flare is visible. Mulching the base of the tree. Place a 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch, but be sure not to pile mulch right against the trunk. A mulch-free area of 1 to 2 inches wide at the base of the tree will reduce moist bark and prevent decay. Follow-up care, keep the soil moist by watering at least once a week and continue until mid-fall, tapering off as the lower temperatures require less frequent watering. Next slide. This is just a little bit more about mulching trees. You want to make sure that they keep the mulch 2 to 3 inches high. Make sure the company keeps the mulch away from the tree's trunk. That the mulch is spread out to the full extent of the foliage drip line of the canopy if possible, and that the root or trunk flare is visible. Next slide. And just some more on mulching, incorrect mulching of trees. So on the left photo, the mulch is excessive and piled way too high. The mulch is touching the bark. The root flare is not visible, so the tree's resembling a light pole instead of a tree. In the middle picture, a mulch volcano has caused the tree to girdle. And then also on the right side is known as a mulch moat with standing water, and it makes it unsightly and not healthy for the tree. So make sure the company you hire doesn't do that on your property. Next is making sure the company doesn't top your trees. Tree topping is the drastic removal or cutting back of large branches in mature trees, leaving large open wounds which subject the tree to disease and decay. Topping causes immediate injury to the tree and ultimately results in early failure or death of the tree. You want to make sure your trees and shrubs are pruned by a trained tree care professional. Next slide. So if you're concerned about your trees, we recommend hiring an arborist if your tree health or structural integrity is a concern to you. ISA certified arborists are individuals who have proven a level of knowledge in the art and science of tree care through experience and by passing a comprehensive examination developed by some of the nation's leading experts on tree care. ISA certified arborists must also continue their education to maintain their certification. So this is just a screenshot from treesaregood.org, but they have a lot of great information on benefits of trees, choosing the right tree, managing tree hazards and risks, plant health care, and planting a tree. Next slide. So this is common practice, unfortunately, but on the left is topping, also known as heading, stubbing, or dehorning of crepe myrtle, which is an incorrect pruning method, and on the right is an incorrect shearing method of shrubs. So topping can lead to stem decay and more dead branches in the canopy, as well as ruining the natural form of the plant. It is a misconception that crepe myrtles need to be severely cut back in late winter, early spring in order to flower well in the summer. So instead, you want to use a naturalistic pruning method that maintains the shape and form of each unique plant. Start early in the life of the plant by removing dead, disease, broken, crossing, and rubbing branches to improve overall plant health and appearance. A well-trained crepe myrtle will not need yearly pruning, so continue that practice only as needed to develop sound structure and enhance the plant's health. Have your landscape company read through and understand proper pruning techniques and when to prune. Be informed as the client and homeowner on what is and isn't correct when it comes to pruning and shearing. Shearing is also a common pruning technique for shrubs. Shearing shrubs to a round ball or other desired shape is quick and easy. However, sheared shrubs lose their natural shape and the rounded balls may detract from a more natural landscape design. And with frequent shearing, the plant becomes bushier on the exterior, and the thick outer foliage may shade out the interior and lower foliage, and the plant becomes a thin shell of foliage with a woody interior and base. This thin shell is prone to browning and burning from wind and cold weather. And there's, if you go on the VCE-Prince YouTube page, there is a video on pruning, and there's a video on specifically pruning azaleas. There's also a lot of extension publications on proper pruning, pruning shrubs, and there's a shrub pruning calendar, and then information or publication on pruning crepe myrtles specifically. Next. All right. So as a homeowner, you can ask to have the company plant native plants, which require less water, fertilizer, pesticides. And native plants are adapted to local conditions. But if you can't get native plants or the landscaper isn't able to, you can get non-native ones, just make sure they're not invasive. Also, make sure the company is planting the right plant in the right place. Are they familiar with your specific site conditions? And the great thing about native plants is instead of having to put down mulch every year, like this photo on the left with the burning bush, you can form a weed barrier by planting native plants closer together, forming a ground cover instead of using mulch or landscape fabric. And next slide. Treating for mosquitoes at the larval stage. So instead of having your whole yard treated for mosquitoes, which can kill other insects indiscriminately, including pollinators and the insects that the birds and other critters eat, Doug Tallamy, a well-known entomologist and author of Bringing Nature Home, recommends trapping mosquitoes when they're at their most vulnerable, which is their larval stage, and not as adults. So in an out-of-the-way area, you can partially fill a bucket of water, add wheat straw or hay, let it ferment for a day or two, and the fermentation attracts female mosquitoes to lay her eggs. It kills the larvae before they mature into biting adults. When you put a mosquito dunk in, which is the photo on the right, it's a circular disc you can buy cheaply online or at the hardware garden store, and it will only kill mosquito larvae and nothing else. Homeowners can also help out with the mosquito issue by walking around their property, dumping water from their tires, wheelbarrows, kids' toys. And if you're sitting on the deck, you can also use a high-powered fan to blow mosquitoes away since they aren't good flyers. Next slide. The company you hire, I would definitely not permit them to use glue traps. Not only are they inhumane, but they trap other animals that weren't intended to be trapped, like birds, skinks, toads, snakes. To help out with to not use glue traps, you can remove, and if you think you have a rodent problem, remove potential rodent homes such as trash, yard debris, construction waste. Eliminate food sources around your house or inside your house. So keep bulk food, seed, and other dry pet food in metal cans with secure lids. Pick up fallen fruit and sweep under bird feeders and take them inside at night. You can seal entrance and exit holes in your home. And if you do find a critter caught in a glue trap, don't release the animal you find. Cover it with a hand towel and place it in a box while you call or transport to a wildlife rehabber, and don't attempt to remove the animal from the sticky trap at home. Next slide. Rodenticides can kill birds of prey and other animals that can help control rodents. So I would not let the company put any rodenticide out. Let birds of prey do their job. Around your home, encourage plants or structures such as snags that would attract birds of prey. Again, try to remove potential rodent homes such as trash, yard debris, construction waste, and again, eliminate the food sources. So keep bulk food, seed, and dry pet food in metal cans with secure lids, pick up fallen fruit, and sweep under bird feeders and take them in at night. Landscape netting, it's used to control erosion and protects the seeds and keeps them from being swept away or by water or windy conditions, but many times animals end up getting entangled in the plastic netting and can't escape and die. Some alternatives, flash tape to deter wildlife, planting more plants and sharing them with the wildlife. There is something called jute netting, which is compostable lawn netting, which is biodegradable and will decompose. But if you have to use netting, or the landscape company has to use the plastic netting, make sure that the netting is tight to the ground so the animals can't get stuck and trapped under it. And you can also frequently check on the netting to make sure the animals are not stuck. Next slide. Scouting for wildlife before mowing or weed whacking. This American bullfrog was the unfortunate victim of a lawnmower blade, which resulted in the amputation of her front left foot and loss of skin over her right hind leg. The company you hire can walk in front of the mower with a broom or stick to agitate the grass and warn any critters to move out of the way. Disturbing the grass prior to mowing can prevent accidents like this. If the landscape company doesn't want to do this, you can have your kids or spouse go out before using lawn equipment. It's great. It's a great job for kids who may want to help but aren't old enough to operate a lawnmower. And mowing in a circular or square route from the center of the yard, working your way to the periphery, will help encourage animals towards the edges and prevent them from getting trapped near the actively mowed areas. And during this time of year, amphibians and snakes like to hide in tall grass, and many turtles are currently moving around looking for sites to overwinter. Next slide. Asking the lawn or landscape company to leave the leaves. So having a very thick and wet layer of leaves can block sunlight, reducing turf growth, and can increase the potential for turf disease. But if they have a mulching mower and or rotary mower, they can mulch the leaves back into the turf. And it's an environmentally friendly practice and a way to manage leaves without impacting the turf. I found a study according to Michigan State University that there was a reduction in dandelions and crabgrass over time as the mulch leaves covered voids in the turf where weeds would germinate in the future. if you don't have a mower and you want to help wildlife over the colder months, instead of mulching the leaves, the leaf litter provides wildlife habitat for many critters such as turtles, toads, birds, and mammals and invertebrates. They use this leaf litter material for food, shelter, and nesting. Butterfly and moth species rely on the protection of fallen leaves for overwintering. If you have an HOA that requires no leaves, consider piling up the leaves, branches, sticks, and stems in an out-of-the-way area in your yard. This pile will provide shelter for the animals while also keeping unwanted materials out of the landfill. Next slide. And ask the company if they can leave the seed heads and dead flower stalks intact. So when we keep a clean and tidy garden, we're frequently eliminating natural materials and features that would otherwise provide nesting habitat for bees and other insects. Cavity nesting bees will make nests in the dried stems and twigs from previous year's growth. So don't aggressively cut back or clean up these plants and consider leaving dead branches alone. If you still want to cut the stalks completely, you can collect the stems and tie them vertically or slightly diagonally to a pole or garden fence in a sunny spot. And plants with pithy, which is the soft spongy tissue in the center of the stems, can be excavated by small carpenter bees and other cavity nesters. And that is it.
Okay, so do we have any questions for Natalie? Grant has a comment. He wanted to have nutsedge treatment, but none of the companies are willing to do individual treatments. They all wanted an annual contract. Any thoughts on that, Natalie?
That's a treatment. I don't know, honestly.
My suggestion would be to look for a smaller company. Smaller companies are usually a little bit more flexible. Do we have any other questions?
Laurel, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I attended last year land care class through Phipps Conservatory, and that class was based on the Northeast Organic Farming Association, NOFA, N-O-F-A, and it was just a wonderful sustainable approach to land care that kind of almost exceeded our Pennsylvania State Extension recommendations with regard to use of chemicals and fertilizer. So I just want to note that. Have you heard of that at all?
I haven't. What's it called? What does it stand for again? Northeast?
Northeast Organic Farming Association, and they produced a book or program, NOFA. So just great resource. Anyways,
Okay.
So just a couple comments and questions. I just read Doug Talmey's latest book. I think it was called Nature of Oaks, which was wonderful and quick read.
Yeah, I have it too.
Yeah, and I was shocked to read, he recommended planting a seed. I mean, obviously the larger caliber trees you plant, the longer they take to recover, given the hacking of the root ball mass apparently. But to plant a tree, because it's important for those just don't plant one seed, but plant more than one, which can be unpractical, obviously, but that inner network of roots as they grow is so important as a cohesive whole for them to sustain windstorms. And so that was one question, what you thought about that. And then when you do work with a company and having them plant trees, my experience has been you can't pick out the trees because they're getting them from maybe an out-of-state source or whatever. So you just have to rely on them that they're doing the quality control of all this potential, damage to the tree you mentioned.
Mhm.
But it's obviously people like to pick out their own trees, right? So that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard of like the tree roots intermingling with each other and the trees talk to each other, which is pretty cool. But I haven't finished reading that book or gotten to that part yet.
So Natalie, I have another question about lawns.
Go ahead.
So I've had the best lawns come out and I've done the soil sample and so forth. And in the spring, I have a fescue lawn. I mean, it looks like a carpet, but by midsummer, there's always this undergrowth of brown, dead looking grass. I mean, the top is still, the top fescue is still green, but underneath is this brown, dead looking grass, which gives it an overall appearance of, well, not a total healthy green lawn. And I can't ever figure out what that is or what's causing it. I mean, it's evenly distributed throughout the lawn. It's like an undergrowth is dying, but the top growth is still green and healthy looking.
Have you sent a picture into the help desk?
No.
Okay.
And what's frustrating is you try to follow these practices that you're talking about, but
Yeah.
the truth is most of the lawns that hire these lawn companies and they come out and they fertilize in the spring and they do all the things that you say we shouldn't do.
Yep.
But their lawns are the ones that look the best
The
all
best.
summer long. And I'm doing the compost. I'm only fertilizing in the fall. I'm doing all the things you're supposed to do. And my lawn doesn't look near as nice. And it's sort of frustrating.
Part of the issue is that doing things the natural way doesn't always look nice, but it reduces the inputs that you're paying for, and it also reduces the potential for damage to water quality through runoff.
That's true. It definitely saves me money.
Yeah. And I guess too, like what is the company putting on your neighbors' lawns? Like, do your neighbors know what they're doing?
The truth is I doubt they do. They just hire the companies because they don't want to be bothered with it. And I see the companies come out. I've talked to a couple of them. And again, they just want you to sign a contract. They're not, they cut the grass, rain or shine, once a week, regardless of the height or whether it needs it. I mean, they're just, they're not someone I would want to hire.
Yeah, they're not following best management practices.
But correct. But yeah, I don't think the homeowners know. They just don't want to be bothered. They hire a company, they come out and they put down all these services, whether they're needed or not. They cut the grass, whether it's needed or not. But I mean, I do have to admit, many of the lawns do look pretty good. So I don't know. I mean, I know that my neighbor had the nutsedge problem and the company was able to get rid of their nutsedge, but then now I got the nutsedge. And like I said, just trying to get the company to just treat the nutsedge, which, they can do it far easier than I can. Most of them aren't willing to do that. They only want you to sign an annual contract.
Yeah, that is tricky. And like I said, I'd look for a smaller company because those are the companies they don't have the set formula. They have their plan, but they're a little bit more flexible and they're a little bit more willing to do special requests.
Yeah, Maggie, I've read 8 to 24 inches for cutting back the stalks. And sometimes it'll like the stalk of my plant will just break in half and then I just let it fall to the ground and let it decompose.
Any other questions?
This is Laurel again. Just to follow up on the last comment, it does seem like these companies do more harm than good, and we have all these warnings: do not, volcano mulch, do not top trees. And the reason we have all this litany of warnings is because that's what's happening out there. And I just wish there was more oversight.
Yeah.
Of the companies, and do you see any hope down the road for that? Thank you.
I just know getting the word out is a good way to go, but from like a landscape perspective, I don't know what they're, I guess, teaching their employees to do, that kind of stuff, but yeah, I honestly don't know.
Part of the problem, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was done.
Part of the problem is that, when we do training for the green industry, it's not the ground crews that show up. It's the supervisors. And the ground crews are doing what they've always done because that's what they've always done. Mm-hmm. And in some cases they're applying X because that's what's on the ticket for the day, that they need to apply X. And it's that disconnect within the landscape companies between, it's not that they don't know what they should be doing, it's that the boots on the ground don't know what they should be doing. And the companies aren't, there's some companies that are good about training their employees about that, but there are other companies that just, it's a new year, let's add another 3 inches of mulch. Doesn't matter that the mulch is, 2 feet high around the tree. Let's just add some more. When the bosses back in the office know that that's a bad practice. But part of it too is economics. Part of it is, what consumers want. A lot of consumers think that mulch volcano looks really good, not realizing what damage it does to the tree.
Thomas,
Yeah,
I think another part of the problem is, the city and counties, because homeowners, they drive around and they see the city and counties topping all the crepe myrtles and, some other trees. And therefore they think, well, that's what they're supposed to do. And a lot of the crepe myrtles that they top, and the truth is they do it because if they were to let them grow naturally, they would get huge, and that they can't have that where they planted them. So they top them. And by midsummer, most of them do look pretty nice. And it keeps them small, but again, that's what homeowners see in the city and counties do. So they think, oh, well, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Well, there is something to be said for leading by example. But again, a lot of times it's, who's doing the actual landscaping. In the county, a lot of times it's the Parks Department. And, most of those guys aren't really trained for, best management practices, as much as we try and encourage that. But I think too that I just find that with cities, and I find this with HOAs as well, that there's a lot of short-sighted, just short-sightedness about the way that things are managed in the landscape. I know that there's a gas station near the office, and tree blew down. And the reason the tree blew down is because the roots had just been planted less than a month ago. There was a big windstorm, and the roots were still burlapped and had a metal cage around them. Landscape company comes back, they replant it the same way. The tree looks good for a couple of days and then it dies.
Are those Bradford pears too?
I'm not really sure,
Mm.
but I see a lot of let's do it. Let's not worry about the long term. We're just going to
Mm.
plant it the easiest way possible. We're going to maintain it the easiest way possible. You know, because it doesn't take a whole lot of skill to top a tree. It takes
Yeah.
a lot more skill to prune something, to
Mhm.
keep it small and still prune it right.
I mean, my parents, for example, my dad was just hiring some random person off Craigslist and wanted to pay as cheap as possible for mulching around the trees. And I think I measured the mulch around one tree and it was like 18 inches. And I was like, you guys need to stop doing that. So, or stop hiring that person because they obviously don't know how to properly mulch.
And tree longevity was another thing that
Mhm.
Talmy mentioned in his book of why you plant a tree at a younger stage rather than the stage we typically see is, I guess, the overall length of the tree, the life of the tree will be a lot longer doing it more of a natural planting from seed. So
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, we're coming up on the hour, so I guess we'll leave it for that. Next week, we have a class on fall vegetables. And thank you all for coming. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please let us know with your questions, comments, and suggestions for other classes and videos. We can be reached at mastergardener@pwcgov.org. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.